everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how to crochet the really easy and simple V-Stitch Triangle Shawl. If you love all things crochet and are passionate about the craft, then you have definitely come to the right place. Hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so you don't miss out on any of my future crochet videos. So before we leap straight on into how you crochet the V-Stitch shawl itself, I just wanted to touch upon this one that I'm currently working on the table at the moment. So far I have used one ball of the James Brett Northern Lights, these sort of yarn cakes. I've used one of these already. I am about to add to the second one. And because I like my shawls nice and big, I'm probably going to go ahead and use a third one as well. It's also worth mentioning that this yarn actually recommends a 4mm crochet hook, but because I wanted nice drape, I actually used a 5.5mm crochet for my particular shawl on the table. Now this yarn here that I've been using, you can see it is one of those sort of thick, thin bits of fluffiness sticking in and amongst it. Really beautiful yarn, but sometimes these yarns give terrible stitch definition. So if you have a fancy yarn, this is the perfect pattern for it. You get to appreciate the yarn without worrying too much about the stitch itself, because it's always best when you have fancy yarn to keep your stitches simple. This will of course work with any yarn, any hook size, and as with all shawls, you can make them as small or as large as you like. So to demonstrate the V-Stitch shawl, I'm just going to go ahead and make a small sample with you today. I'm going to be using James Brett Party Time Chunky for this and a 6mm crochet hook. So with your chosen yarn and your chosen hook size, whatever that may be, I'm going to start with a magic ring. You don't have to use a magic ring. If you prefer, you can chain 4 or 5, depending on your intention, and slip stitch to that very first chain to create a little circle. But whichever method you go with, we're going to start with chain 4, which counts as a double crochet and a chain 1. So that's my 3 chains for my mock double crochet stitch plus chain 1. Then into your ring, you're going to work a V-stitch. Now a V-stitch is quite simple. It's a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Remember, I am using American terms here. So your V-stitch is a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. That's all there is to it. Then chain 3. And work another V-stitch into that center ring. So double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. For your V-stitch, you can see it forms like a little V shape. Then chain 1 and place a double crochet into that center ring. If you've used a magic ring, now is the time to tighten it up. And that is the very start of your V-stitch shawl. So for row 2, you're going to chain 3, which counts as your first double crochet, then turn your work. Now into this chain 1 space, so this is your V-stitch here, into this chain 1 space, work a double crochet. Chain 1, and then work a V-stitch into the exact same space. Chain 1. Now skip this V-stitch here. We're never going to work into them. We're only ever working either side of them. And into this chain 3 space at the top, V-stitch, chain 3 and V-stitch, all into that same chain space. This is going to form the spine, the sort of central spine of your shawl. So at the top of your work, you're always going to have V-stitch, chain 3, V-stitch. Now chain 1, skip your V-stitch, and in between, you've got here your chain 4 from the very last row. So in this space in between your V-stitch and these chain 4 here, in there, pop a V-stitch. Chain 1. Into that same space, put a double crochet. And then we're going to end with a double crochet into the third chain of this chain 4 that you did right back in the very beginning. Now, if you can't spot it, don't worry too much. Just sort of aim for the top. But it's 1, 2, 3. Your extra chain should be hidden under here by now. And we're just going to shove it in the top. Don't worry too much about where. Just sort of aim for the top. It's always easier if you just vaguely aim. All right, row 3, chain 3, which counts as a double crochet, and turn your work. Put a double crochet, so ignore this one where you've just chained from. Put a double crochet into the top of the next stitch, which is a double crochet from your row below. So ignore where you've just chained from and work into the next stitch here. Chain 1. And now we're going to be working into the chain 1 spaces in between your V stitches. So here, this is the one that's easiest to miss. This one here and this one here. So here and here. So into this first chain 1 space, pop a V stitch. Chain 1. Skip that V-stitch there and work into the space next to it. Just pop a V-stitch in there. You're probably going to get very sick of me saying the words V-stitch by the end of this video. Chain 1. And then you'll notice we're right back to this chain 3 central spine. In this chain 3 space, work a V-stitch, chain 3, and another V-stitch, all into that same space. Now we're going to work down the other side. So chain 1, V-stitch in the next chain 1 space. Chain 1, and then V-stitch into this chain 1 space right at the very end. These are the only bits where you can really go awry. You'll always have your V-stitch and then 2 stitches at the end. You want to be working in between the V-stitch and those 2 double crochet stitches. So pop a V-stitch in between there. Chain 1, and then to end, pop a double crochet into the top of this double crochet stitch and pop a double crochet into the top of your chain 3. Now the chain 3 is easier to find this time round, so it's just here next to where you've just placed that stitch. Pop a double crochet right into the very top of that chain 3 there. So those are your 3 setup rows complete. Now we're going to do row 4, which is the pattern repeat row. So for row 4, this is the row that you are going to repeat all the way until your shawl is the size you want it to be. So we're going to chain 3, which counts as a double crochet, and turn. Then place a double crochet into the next double crochet stitch, which is very conveniently marked blue here, thanks to the colour change of this yarn. So you're always going to start with chain 3 and then a double crochet into the next stitch. Chain 1 and work V stitches into the chain 1 spaces all the way up the side until you get to the central point. So here, here, and here. So we're going to work a V stitch into that space, chain 1, V stitch into the next space. Chain 1, V stitch into the next space. As your shawl grows bigger, you will have one more side section. So these bits as we go up the side, you'll have one more of these to do for every row as it gets bigger. So we've just done 3, the next row would be 4, 5, 6, etc. So once you have done your final upside V-stitch, chain 1, and you'll be at the chain 3 space of the sort of central spine. In there, V-stitch, chain 3, V-stitch, all into the same space. Then we're going to do the same on the down side. So we came up, we've done that middle sort of central spine bit. I never know what to call this bit on a shawl. And then we're going to come down the other side. So just like before, chain 1, V-stitch in the chain 1 space, chain 1, V-stitch, chain 1, V-stitch in this very last one. That's the one that is easy to miss. So you're just working down the side, popping a V-stitch into the chain 1 space, and then chaining 1 in between. And at the very end, you'll have sort of 4 stitches. This is your V-stitch, so skip these 2 here and work into this chain 1 space next to the last 2 stitches. Pop your V-stitch in there. Chain 1, and to end, double crochet in the top of this double crochet stitch here, and then double crochet into the top of that chain 3. So here, as I said before, if you can't find it, just aim for the top. And that is the row 4, that you're going to repeat for the full length of your project. So chain 3, turn, double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, then you pop your V-stitch, chain 1, V-stitch, chain 1, V-stitch, chain 1, V-stitch, chain 1, all the way up the side. When you get to this midpoint, V-stitch, chain 3, V-stitch, then chain 1, V-stitch, chain 1, V-stitch, chain 1, V-stitch, chain 1, V-stitch, all the way down. And do not forget, right in this very last section, you pop your final V-stitch in between these stitches, chain 1, and end with a double crochet in that last stitch and 1 in your chain 3. As you get going, you'll find that this V-stitch shawl is so fast to work up. It's so fast. That one that I showed you in the beginning, that was just sort of, I don't know, 2 or 3 evenings work. really quick. When you get into the swing of it, you don't really even need to look. It's a lot like a granny shawl, but obviously much quicker because you're omitting one double crochet and replacing it with a chain one in that cluster. So it just whizzes up super duper fast. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on the super quick V-Stitch Triangle Shawl. Please do let me know in the comments down below what you think of this pattern. Is it something you've done before, or is it something you're considering trying now? I love hearing your comments, and I do my best to try and read every single one of them. So until next time, happy crocheting. Bye!